This video is going to show you how to write redox equations by combining ion-electron equations. So you'll be familiar with these from the data book. They would be given to you to then balance them. A separate question would be to write them from the data book. So in the first example, we have aluminium and cesium. And you'll see there's like a three-step method above where you have to multiply the equations, the full equation, to make the electrons equal. So if you take each equation, find your electrons, the top one has 3, whereas the bottom one has 1, so they are not equal. So what you would need to do is multiply this equation by 3 to give you 3 electrons. So I would just write at the side what you're doing. Now that's going to affect everything in the equation, not just the electrons. Step 2, cancel out the electrons. So you can only do that once they're equal. So now that they're both 3, we cancel them. And the final step, once you're happy with that and everything's balanced and cancelled, you want to combine the 2 equations to make one equation, which would then be your redox equation. Now note from here, ion-electron equations, which is what you had to start with, have ions, so charged species, and electrons. Redox cannot have electrons in it, but it will have ions. So a redox equation for this then, on the left of the arrow, you will still have Al3 plus aqueous, as you did there. So rewrite that. There's nothing else on the top equation on the left of the arrow, but you'll see in the bottom equation, the left of the arrow has 3 CS solid. Then draw your arrow. Then on the right hand side of the equation, you have aluminium as a solid, plus 3 CS plus. Aqueous. Do not write the electrons. So that would be your final answer that you'd be looking for, and just make sure you definitely put in what you've multiplied things by, otherwise your answer is incorrect. So next example, multiply equations to make them equal. So you'll see the top one has 2 electrons, bottom has 3. So it's not as simple as just timesing 1 by 3, 4. This time you have to times both of them to make them cancel out. Now what we normally do is just multiply them by each other. So if you multiply the 2 by 3 and the 3 by 2, you should get them both being 6. But again, it does affect the full equation. So 3, 3, that becomes 6, 2, 6, 2. Then cancel out electrons and rewrite your final answer. So this time I have on the left of the arrow 3 SR solid plus 2 CR 3 plus aqueous. Then my arrow gives me 3 SR 2 plus 2 CR S. I do recommend physically cancelling out your electrons so you don't rewrite them. I'm doing this with coloured pens. It just finds it easier to read what I'm doing, but it's really up to you. You could highlight things that you want to rewrite, or just score out electrons again as we did. So final answer there. Now final one is just a bit of a more complex one that you might see in past paper questions. So this is highly unusual at National 5, it's more seen at higher, but it's definitely been in National 5 past papers. So don't be put off by that, as long as there's electrons there, it's the same method every time. So the top one has 6 electrons, the bottom has 2. So you could times them both by each other, or you could just times the bottom one by 3 to give you 6 electrons. So try and find the easiest way. If you don't need to times both, then don't. So bottom one, now has 6 bromine, 3 Br2, so just watch that. That's only 6 because it's 3 times 2. That didn't have a number, so it's just 3. That becomes 6 as well, and we're done. Next one is cancelling electrons because they're equal, and rewrite your answer. So there's a lot more to rewrite this time. Just take care, every charge in bracket matters. If you write one incorrectly, your final answer is wrong, and it's only worth 1 mark. So rewrite all of that. Cr2O7, 2 negative aqueous, plus 14H plus aqueous, plus 6 Br minus aqueous. And then on the right of your arrow, you want 2 Cr3 plus aqueous, plus 7 H2O liquids. Now I've run out of space, so taking what's left, it has to be on the correct side of the arrow, like you would when you're writing chemical equations and word equations. So just write it underneath on the right. So plus 3 Br2 liquids is your final answer for that one.